Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get tonight's meeting started. Sacramento Metro Fire, Thursday, March 8, 2018, 6 p.m. here in Metro Fire headquarters. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge. If I can get Director Wood, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Wood. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Saturday, March 10, 2018 at 12 noon, and Monday, March 12, 2018 at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district's website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. And now is the opportunity for anyone in the public to discuss any items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
Very much. Moving on to the consent items. Do we have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I move consent.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and second. Madam Clerk?
Director Gale.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
And Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the presentation items. Chief Harms, for the 10 years of service for Board Clerk Melissa Padilla.
Good evening. We have another presentation for 10 years of service. You want to stand up front?
Do you want me to go up front?
Yeah. We started a new tradition.
Okay.
Bigger smile. So I have just a few things to read here. Melissa began her career with Metro Fire on March 10, 2008 as an office technician in the Community Risk Reduction Division, formerly known as the Fire Prevention Bureau. She was reassigned to the Legal Division, where she worked until July of 2011, when she was promoted to the Human Resource Specialist in HR. Between 2011 and 2014, she specialized in the recruitment and background process for over 300 employees. Impressive. Additionally, Melissa was a key member in the preparation, planning, and implementation of the district's 15-16 strategic plan, a process which started in 2013 and was presented to the Board of Directors in 2015. On March 17th of 2014, Melissa was promoted to her current position as the Board Clerk. She works directly with the 9 board members, the fire chief, and on a variety of complex assignments in support of board and committee actions, individual requests by the Board of Directors, and other executive, professional, and administrative functions, including but not limited to all of the public records request, administration of the district's conflict of interest code, as the filing officer for the statements of economic filing, preparing and responding to 910 claims, coordinating the district's elections with the voter registration election department, and maintaining the budget for the Board of Directors. Melissa is a graduate of CSU, Stingers up, Sacramento, where she earned a bachelor's degree in psychology. So congratulations on your 10 years. For me, it's very special was that when I came for my interview, the very first person that I met here was Melissa. As I came in and walked up the stairs, and she was the person that greeted me at the top of the stairs, and that's one of those moments and one of those memories that I'll always have. And I'm also very appreciative of what she does every single day for the board and packets, and truly keeps me in line of get your stuff in on time, and when it's not on time, we'll do that in 2 weeks. So thank you very much. And her husband Angel is here, and he's going to come up and pin her.
You're good. She's great. You're great. You're doing just great. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Are you sure you don't want to say anything? Okay. Well done, Chief. Any comments from the board regarding that? Okay. The one I'd like to say is, Melissa, also from behalf of the board, you deal with 9 different personalities on this board who request a lot of information from you, and at no time have you ever said no, which is great, and you're always quick to remind us when we are delayed in turning some things in. So I truly appreciate
You guys are
you being
good.
prompt and helping us stay in our lanes also. So thank you for all you do. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, moving on to action items. Hazardous Materials Response Team Agreement with Sacramento County Assistant Chief Quinn.
President Barnes, board members, Chief Harms, Chris Quinn here, Assistant Chief Operations Division. To bring to you tonight, what you have in front of you is a staff report on our hazardous materials agreement with the County of Sacramento as well as the additional stakeholders. Well, I was preparing this and putting this together for you. Chief Harms thought, and I think absolutely appropriate probably at this point, to talk a little bit about the hazmat team as well. So with this discussion of the agreement itself, we'll include just a little bit of overview of the hazmat team, what it does, and the types of services that it provides not only to our jurisdiction, but surrounding jurisdictions as well. So the program began in 2003 here at Metro. And the team uses obviously a wide array of specialized equipment. What they're dealing with is any number of chemicals, products that could be spilled, off-gassed, and so they have to be able to go in there and not only identify, but be able to stabilize a release or a spill, any biological threats. They would deal with that as well. Certainly in a post-9/11 world, that threat is in front of us also, and they're trained for that. Currently, over 55 total members are part of this program. So 7 members are daily responding out of Station 109 in Carmichael with the companies that are there, Hazmat 109, as you've heard it termed before. They respond in currently a 2004 Pierce, fully contained piece of apparatus that has all their equipment and things that they would need to remedy the problems that they respond to and or support other region partners in the programs that they have. Just to be considered for this team, you're looking at over 240 hours of specialized training per member. So not only are they obviously firefighters, some are firefighter paramedics, certain officers on the company, but then they're going to go out through CSTI and be certified to the specialist level to be on the hazardous material team. So we're talking background in chemistry, different products, how to contain and then get hands-on a lot of this different type of material and or the containers that material typically would live in, so to speak, putting the genie back in the bottle. So what is unique to Metro Fire is that we are one of 33 Type 1 hazardous materials teams in the state of California. And while that may seem, you know, on some level, you look and you say, well, wow, 33 may seem like a lot. But consider 33 hazmat teams that are at the Type 1 level responding to the entire state of California. So that's a big footprint, and our hazmat team is a big part of that. And so 33 of some 60 teams in the state of California, 33 are Type 1. We're blessed that our team is that. So that means the highest level of training and their capabilities. They have all the capabilities that would lie within a Type 2 or 3 team as well. But then they have advanced level training and equipment. So fully encapsulated suiting, as you see here, air modeling, the ability to detect all types of different products and chemicals, and then obviously the larger leak intervention and kits to be able to do the work that they need to do. Keep in mind that a lot of these products in today's world are obviously extremely important for our lives every single day. But when they get outside of their container, if it will, it really takes a team like this to be able to mitigate that hazard and keep people safe. So you're looking at the hazmat team at about 1,400 calls per year, keeping in mind that this same piece of apparatus will respond to fires, medical aids, all of those things as well. And then on top of that, these are specialists running over 200 hazardous materials responses a year just for that team. Now, what is not here, but I think it's important to note, is that this team on nearly a daily basis is consulting with the rest of our engine and ladder companies that are throughout the community when they have a, let's say, what is a minor spill. And so they'll consult with them, have a discussion. Is it going to be something that requires more intervention, or the company itself can handle it out in the field? So they're fielding those calls as well and providing a great service there. And then to our region partners, they're as well doing that consulting. So how does it intermingle with the Sacramento County Regional Response Agreement and Program? The county has realized that having individual teams and other member agencies around the county is obviously extremely expensive. You've got the labor costs, you've got the training, you've got the equipment. This is incredibly specialized work. And so rather than have everybody having a specialized hazmat team, we are one within this jurisdiction of the County of Sacramento. The city, it should be noted, has two. And so we respond with them in a 1/3, 2/3 type configuration. If one hazmat team can handle it, it'll be handled. If they need to back up or cover the other jurisdiction because folks are at training or those types of things are taking place, then we'll go ahead and cover each other. If additional teams are needed, that's when the teams come in and do their work all together. Some of this work is obviously long, hot, tedious work, and so obviously you have to rest crew members, and that's when we would bring in additional resources. So as far as in the County of Sacramento, we work in this 1/3, 2/3 configuration. Metro, based on the agreement, receives the 33 3/4% of the revenue that's received annually from the participating agencies. And then city, of course, with two hazmat teams, would receive 2/3 of that funding. The participating agencies are listed here. So City of Galt, Elk Grove, Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova, City of Folsom. You can see the different departments within the county. What's unique here is number 8, the County of Sacramento Environmental Management Department is actually the one that effectively manages the different stakeholders. So they'll get with us, set up the meetings for stakeholders. They'll go ahead and do the invoicing. So a portion of the funds goes to them to be able to do that. That's something new because they had quite a labor burden in making that happen. So they will receive a portion of those funds to be able to do that. And then agencies will be invoiced. And then obviously, once we receive funds and the reimbursement, it'll be apportioned out in that 1/3, 2/3 fashion. So again, I mentioned earlier the cost of establishing and maintaining a team such as this is something that the county realized fairly quickly, as did our adjacent neighbors, the other fire departments within the region. And it was determined that here's where agencies can partner and really, as it relates to the taxpayers in the region, really leverage the efficiencies of multiple different agencies. I think, again, this shows the public, through transparency and partnerships, that we're really doing the best that we can with their tax dollars. And so I think this really highlights that type of relationship. In the staff report, obviously staff believes it's a cost-effective approach to assure that we have a ready and capable asset to our region partners while reducing the specific risk and financial impact to the citizens of our district. So we have this partnership with outside entities, so when we're responding out of jurisdiction, they're obviously in some cases can't provide the hazmat team, but they certainly can provide some funding to assist with training, equipment, and obviously the cost associated with maintaining such a team. So the belief is we would continue to take this forward. This has been, so far, a very valuable program, a great partnership. I think, again, it showcases what we do best. I know that Council Lavra has a couple of things he wants to mention to you, and it's probably the best time for that to happen right now.
Thank you. Members of the board, I've reviewed the contract, and I'm still working with the County of Sacramento on clarifying some language of the contract that's found on page 8 of the contract, page 53 of your packet, that deals with the termination clause. I'm working to clarify with the county a mutual termination clause for breach of the contract. It's right now written in such a way that the county can terminate upon 30 days' notice upon breach of the contract. I'm working to clarify that to make it a mutual termination provision. I anticipate hearing back from the county on Monday. I spoke to the county's representative, or got a message from the county's representative today indicating that they would have an answer and be able to discuss it with me on Monday. If the board is inclined to, I was somewhere else before I came here. If the board is inclined to approve this contract, I would ask that it be approved, written as is, but to provide authority to me to clarify that detail of the contract. And if I'm not able to clarify that detail, that it be approved as is. I can answer any questions.
Was that all you had to report out on from your side?
I'll just
before we-
finish when Council Lauber's done.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Director Gale?
I would think that in the world we live in now, this probably here forever, because some very nasty things can happen with hazardous material, and it's very expensive. And I think there's a possibility for federal funds so that people do some nasty things. You probably saw in London some small kinds of things, and the major things can happen if we are not vigilant on it. I think it's a great idea and it's full speed ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Director Kelly?
Are you on a hard time frame for this?
We're really looking to close out this last fiscal on it and then move forward into next year. We'll start sitting down very early. There'd been some changes in positions for people and things like that. So we were looking to streamline the process so that we can get into what would probably be more appropriate in a 3-year type agreement, kind of a renewable 3-year versus every 1 year kind of taking people's time for what they know to be a valuable asset.
Okay, thank you.
And then lastly, I would point out that while we've been running in a piece of equipment that's 2004, 2004 is not as state-of-the-art as 2018. So we are in process right now. The members have come together with the varying divisions at Metro Fire and begun and nearing the end of the spec being built for our new hazmat rig. So being the type of equipment that it is and very specialized, don't expect to see it on the street within a few months, but hopefully we could look at a piece of equipment like that hitting the street, much like the rescue did, and roll that out for your review within 365 days type of a deal.
Copy, thank you. Do you have some?
Yes.
Director Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Counsel Lavra, I'm a little concerned that you'd still be working on the language, but this is a secondary, not fallback, but, well, a second position then is to go ahead and improve what's in front of us, even if you're not able to put the county/metro. I'm a little worried about exposure or inappropriate reversal. I mean, they can have 30 days, but both of us have 90 days. Do you feel confident? Oh, that's a loaded question. What degree of confidence do you have that we can get reciprocity on?
I'm pretty
two?
confident. We've had this come up in the past. This is basically a form contract that's used by Sacramento County, most likely in public works contracts as opposed to service contracts like this, number one. Number two, I would give approval to the contract as written. I would just like it clarified to give mutual termination upon breach for either side. But in essence, you would be writing into the contract what the law already provides. And that is, if there's a material breach, whether anything is said about this in the contract, if there's a material breach of the contract under the California law, that relieves and excuses the performance of the other side to that contract. So for some reason, the county didn't pay, which is their only duty really under the contract, Sac Metro, whether I could negotiate that mutual termination provision or not, would have the right to terminate the contract for material breach.
Is that a 30
and
days?
and then excuse its performance. No, they could excuse within a reasonable period of time. So, or declare the breach and excuse their performance within a reasonable period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, if there's nothing further, I'll go ahead and move staff's recommendation that we approve, subject to the qualifications from council. That we approve it as is, with the authority to council to negotiate the termination clause.
Appreciate it. May I get a
Second.
second? All right, having a first and second. Madam Clerk.
Director Gale,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark, Kelly,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, directors.
Thank you for the information. Moving on to the mid-year budget, CFO Thomas. Everybody get your calculators out.
Okay. Good evening, directors, Chief Harms. Amanda Thomas, Chief Financial Officer for the district. And this evening, I'm here to present our recommended adjustments for the mid-year budget for fiscal year 2017-18. So just a quick overview of, our budget process and where we are at this point in the fiscal year. So here we are adopting mid-year budget adjustments, which are based on actual results through the second quarter of the fiscal year. So we have results from from July through December that we're looking at, and then we're making projections for the remainder of the year. And at this point in the year, we have a much better idea what that second half of the year is going to look like than we did when we put together the preliminary budget and the final budget. So that's really the information upon which we're basing these recommended adjustments, which are coming from all of the budget officers, division managers, folks who are managing projects, and have that information. And then just to summarize, what all of that is telling us is that our overall recommended general fund deficit with these mid-year adjustments is really remaining pretty much where it is currently at the final budget, at about a $1 million deficit or use of reserves in this fiscal year. So what that looks like in terms of numbers is shown right here on the table, and this is summarizing our revenues and expenses for fiscal year 2017-18, and we're comparing with the first column being the currently adopted final budget, the middle column being what we're recommending tonight for a mid-year budget, and then that third column over being the variance between the two. So looking at the first line, revenues, you can see that we currently have budgeted revenues of $190.7 million in the general fund. We're now expecting that number to be $194.7 million. So that's a $4 million increase in revenues from final budget to mid-year budget. Moving down to look at the expenditure items, labor costs, we have a current budget of $164.3 million. We're recommending adjustments to that to take us to $167.9 million for about a $3.6 million increase in labor expenditures. When we look at total expenditures, so that's adding in our services and supplies and taxes, license assessments, and contributions to that labor cost, you can see we're going from total expenditures of $193.2 million to $197.2 million, or overall about a $4 million increase in expenditures. So right there, you can see that the increase in expenditures is offsetting the increase in revenues. So we have a very minor change in that revenues less expenditure number going from final to mid-year. As you'll recall, we do have transfers that come into and out of the general fund from some of the other district funds, and we're not seeing a lot of change in those overall numbers at mid-year compared to final. If you look at that total transfer number, we've still got about $1.5 million net coming into the general fund. It is a little bit of an improvement, about a $50,000 improvement in that number. And then looking at the overall bottom line, you can see, as I mentioned, that we have a $1 million deficit currently. Well, we're recommending about a $1 million deficit at mid-year, a very slight improvement in that number by about $30,000. So overall, not a lot of change, but there are some ups and downs that I'm going to talk about that got us to that pretty much same net result. So starting to look specifically at revenues, as I mentioned, we have that $4 million increase, and that's resulting from the things that are listed here on this slide. So the first and biggest one is our deployment revenue. As you'll recall, we don't include the revenue or the direct labor expenses associated with deployments in the final budget. Those get added in at mid-year, so you're seeing that adjustment hit right now. And we're looking at $4.7 million in additional revenue as a result of deployments. That's going to be partially offset by $3.6 million in labor expense that you'll see when we get to the next slide. But you can see that there is a net revenue increase there as a result of that activity. Offsetting that somewhat is that we are looking at lower medic cost recovery revenues this year than what we had projected at final budget. So we're recommending a $1.3 million decrease in that budget number based on our year-to-date results, which have been trending below last year. We do expect that the second half of the year will pick up, and in fact, we've already seen that in the January and February numbers. In large part because we're starting to see the impact of that, the fee increase that went into effect in September. Because there's a lag in terms of when those collections come in, we're really just now starting to see that. So we think the second half will be better than the first half, but overall we think we'll have about $1.3 million less in that revenue than what we were projecting at the beginning of the year. On the positive side, for GEMT, which is a supplemental reimbursement for the fee-for-service Medi-Cal beneficiaries, we do have an additional $1.2 million in what is essentially one-time revenue due to prior year supplemental reimbursements related to the Affordable Care Act. So really what that is that patients who qualified for Medi-Cal as a result of the changes of the Affordable Care Act, we got 100% reimbursement of the cost difference versus the normal 50%. And that kind of all came in this year for 3 prior years. So that's that additional revenue that we're seeing this year because of that. We have about $500,000 that we expect to receive in insurance proceeds related to the repair of the helicopter. That's going to be 100% offset by that repair expense. So you'll see that when we get to expenditures, but that's the revenue that will be coming in. And then finally, we have about a $400,000 decrease in our projected inspection fee revenue, and that's the result of having staff vacancies that weren't anticipated, not being able to complete as many inspections because of those vacancies. So turning to look at expenses, this slide is focusing on labor costs. As I mentioned, we're recommending a $3.6 million increase in the labor budget. The largest factor accounting for that is that deployment expense, so that labor expense of $3.6 million. Additionally, we're recommending an $800,000 increase in our contribution towards unfunded liability with SCRS. That's the Sacramento County Employees Retirement System. The district does have an unfunded liability associated with the service of former Florin Fire District members. That unfunded liability has been increasing for many of the same reasons that we've seen our PERS unfunded liability increasing. We'll be meeting with SCRS in the next month or so to really determine what those payments need to look like on a go-forward basis. But for this fiscal year, we feel like this is an important contribution for us to be able to make to try to keep up with that. You'll be hearing more when we get to the preliminary budget discussion about what we think it's going to look like in future years after we have a chance to have that discussion with them. A couple of the other adjustments in the labor budget, both workers' compensation and shift overtime, we're recommending about a $200,000 decrease in each of those, and that's really just based on the expenditure trend for the first 6 months of the year, trending slightly below what we have budgeted and indicating that we'll probably not need all of the original budget for those items. And then finally, I've mentioned this in the past, but when we put together our preliminary and our final budget, we assume that all of the positions will be filled and develop the budget that way. As we move through the year, that doesn't always turn out to be the case. So we actually have savings related to position vacancies in the form of salary and benefits cost savings of about $8.1 million. which is almost entirely offset by our increased callback overtime because we are essentially filling those positions with overtime of about $8 million. So those two really do offset each other, and we just, as we get to mid-year, we're able to make a more accurate prediction about where the cost is going to hit. But it's just kind of an indication that that approach of budgeting for 100% filled positions is really getting us where we need to be in terms of dollar amounts at the end of the year. And then one thing that I did want to mention that if you reviewed the packet, you may have noticed is that there is one position change that's being recommended in the mid-year budget, and that's a reallocation from an office technician to a plan intake specialist in the Community Risk Reduction Division. It really has a very negligible cost impact, so you don't see it here on the slide, but I did want to mention that that was in the packet. Looking at some of the non-labor expenditures in the general fund, services and supplies overall has an increase of about $400,000. That's actually entirely accounted for by the $500,000 increase in the helicopter repairs, and then there's about $100,000 net reduction in all of the other accounts in that expense category. And then the other changes in the general fund is that we have a $50,000 increase in the taxes, licenses, assessments, and contributions category due to an unanticipated expense in that category. And then, as I mentioned previously, there's a $50,000 reduction in the required transfer from the general fund due largely to changes in the capital facilities fund. So speaking of which, just a few notes on some of the other funds, so non-general fund changes. That $50,000 reduction in what needs to come from the general fund to the capital facilities fund is a result of largely offsetting larger changes that are happening in the capital facilities fund. Based on our audited results, there was an increased availability of fund balance in that fund of about $400,000, so that was additional funding available to fund expenditures out of that fund compared to what we had anticipated at final budget. There's also a net debt service reduction of about $500,000 because we don't anticipate that we'll have any payments related to financing that would occur this year because it's going to happen late enough in the fiscal year that there won't be any payments due. So we'll still have that same total cost over the life of the financing. It just won't impact this fiscal year's budget. And then there's offsetting those two positive changes, there's a fund revenue reduction of about $900,000 because we had assumed proceeds from the sale of district property in this fiscal year, and it now looks like that's likely to occur either next fiscal year or beyond, so not in this current fiscal year's budget. So as I mentioned, those all largely offset each other, and there's about a $50,000 sort of positive change that's reducing what needs to come from the general fund. And then there are some adjustments to the grants fund and the leased properties fund, but neither of those significantly impact the required transfer from the general fund. So just to summarize, the mid-year adjustments do result in a net general fund deficit of about $1 million, which is essentially unchanged from our final budget position. With an audited starting reserve balance of approximately $22 million in the general fund reserve, we project that the reserve balance at the end of the year, so after that $1 million deficit, would be $21 million, or about 10.7% of our net budgeted expenditures. And that concludes my presentation. Our recommendation is to approve the resolutions that would adopt the mid-year budget amendments for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the information. Any questions or comments from the board?
A budget is a budget is a budget.
All right, I'll second it with a quick question.
Well, do you have a question, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. CFO Thomas, you mentioned there was a change in the staffing to change one to a plan intake specialist. But then that would have a positive impact on the revenue from community risk reduction, correct? 'Cause
Yeah.
Is that part of it becomes a revenue source, correct?
I think the idea is to sort of enhance the service delivery of that division, so that yes, we are more effectively able to complete inspections and.
That was sort of a comment question, so just wanted to, that's a little good, we can add to it, thank you.
And plan into, excuse me, I shouldn't say inspections, but basically plan review, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Now, each one of these we have to vote on separately, so if there's no questions or comments.
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2017-18 mid-year budget adjustment for the general operating fund 212A.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. I have a motion. Second. And a second. Madam Clerk.
Director Gale,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark, Kelly,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye. Sorry.
Motion passes.
Moving on to resolution mid-year budget adjustment for capital facilities funds.
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2017-18 mid-year budget adjustment for the Capital Facilities Fund 212D.
I have a motion. Can I get a
Second.
second? And I have a second. Madam Clerk.
Director Gale,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark, Kelly,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the grants funds 212G.
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2017-18 mid-year budget adjustment for the Grants Fund 212G.
Thank you. I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
And a second. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Director Gale,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark, Kelly,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And finally, the lease properties fund 212L.
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2017-18 mid-year budget adjustment for the Lease Properties Fund 212L.
Thank you very much. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second, Madam Clerk.
Director Gale,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark, Kelly,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the information and the work you and your staff do for us. Means a lot.
Thank you.
Moving on to reports, President's report, I do not have any, but I would like to thank Director Jones for chairing the meeting, the last meeting, and
My pleasure.
while I was gone, so I appreciate it. And Fire Chief's report, Chief Harms.
Good evening, directors. I'd just like to start off first with two things. One is to thank Amanda for the report and the work that her group does to go through the mid-year. And she said it just really quick is that we have a process that we go through. But it is a very driven process. Her and Chief Castantini keep us all on task, and it's a very open, that everybody is invited within the district to come and be able to sit and go through that. And I think you see the end of it is that it's a budget that drives us as a district forward. The other one is thank Chief Quinn for talking about the hazmat program and your support of it. And I think what I saw, I just came back from San Diego this morning, but yesterday at a construction site, they hit a 20-inch gas main. And it started about 10 o'clock in the morning, and they weren't able to shut it down till about 7 o'clock at night. And what you saw was they closed Interstate 8, they closed the 205, they evacuated about a mile square of an area that included a mall. But really, if you were watching the television and watching what was going on, it was the hazmat crews that were out looking at the space, figuring out where it was going, doing plume modeling. And while it impacted a big area, they were actually able to close it down because of the wind. They knew what the wind was doing, and they were able to open up some areas by 5 o'clock for rush hour until they could get it shut down. So sometimes you see it and you can kind of talk about it. That one there was one of those ones where you actually saw them going to work. And a lot of the hazmat calls are not quick. They're multiple hours. And it's just a really important ability that we have in our service delivery. So with that, a couple things going on is that we have a firefighter paramedic recruitment that is open for Academy 18-2. That one is scheduled to start on July 30th. We also have a recruitment that is open for a procurement specialist. We continue to have a number of meetings with the command staff, day staff, with our crews and with the union. Myself and Chief Bridge did a executive staff winter update. It was on a video. It was just unbelievable. We won't show it though. I also, myself and Trevor did a video along with two captains, Bryce Mitchell and Brian Barthel. And when I had first gotten here, they had some things that they had brought forward, and the two of them had kind of drove that forward in the district to an end, and we wanted to be able to celebrate that. So they did that. We had an executive staff meeting with Sac City. It was probably our last meeting with Chief White as he retires next week, so we had a really good meeting that was over there. We had our labor management meeting with Trevor and the group. We met with Nav Gill at the county and talked about the county today, where we're at, what are some of those opportunities that are out there, what are some of the changes in development that are coming, and how does Metro fit into that. Chief Johnson and Jeff Fry came along with us and had a very productive meeting with them. Some of you attended on March 1st. We had the awards gala. Thank you for coming. We kind of did a little something different and left here and went out and had a nice dinner and a celebration, and I thought it was a great event. So again, thank you for coming, and again, thank you for the members, and what a great year that we had. Myself and a number of members went down to San Diego to a conference called Firehouse World. We were very lucky that there was what was called a boot academy for fire behavior, and we were allowed to bring 3 members down, and between Underwriters Laboratory and the conference, they actually paid all the expenses for those members to go down and attend for 3 days. They fed them, but they did, I'll have to say, the group that was there was in that room for 8 hours a day for 3 days straight. So it was a very good conference. We had a number of folks down there seeing what is out there today, what changes are happening, and it's one of the best educational conferences on the West Coast. The last thing is that we're moving forward again with the mission-driven culture. And through myself and through the support of Oklahoma State University, ourselves and San Diego Fire are doing some initial surveys so that we can look and say, are we making a difference and are we tracking change? I went through the other day and did it myself, and it was a pretty quick 15-minute survey, but it talked a lot about the organization and where you are today. So part of moving forward not only is, do we making a difference, but can we track it, and are we truly making a difference, or is it just that it's our feeling? But luckily with Oklahoma State, they're sponsoring that at no cost to us, and it's completely confidential. They keep all the information, and then they bring back their findings to us. So that ends my report, unless you have some questions.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate the information. Any questions or comments for the Chief? No. I'd like to say I appreciate the fact that you're reaching out and being proactive on those surveys and finding out how can we get better. For a lot of times we show up and say, why do we do it? That's the way we've always done it. But for you, the leadership, to do that, to figure out what change can we make, I commend you for that. So thank you. Yes. Moving on to the operations report, Chief Bridge.
Okay, got that hard, thanks. Good evening, President Barnes, directors, Eric Bridge, Operations Chief. We'll run by our numbers, which are trending as they have been, but I'd like to give you a little perspective on what we've done over the last 10 years to maybe kind of give you an idea of where we're at. And I'll be brief with those numbers, so it won't take too long here. But right there, thank you. To date, since our last board meeting on the 22nd, we're trending at that average number of about 3,700 calls, of which from the EMS side, we've had about 2,500 dispatches, and we're transporting it 71% of the time. AMR assisting our big help there with 354 dispatches and transporting about 60% of the time. So with that, we've also had about 10 structure fires recently. We've had a few of them that you've probably seen, maybe you've seen on the news. So fortunately, with minor, no injuries on those, our members are doing a great job. PIO is doing a good job too. PIO is doing a fantastic job, yeah. Thank you. We've also, looking at the numbers from like 10 years ago to where we're at today, let me just, to date, we're at, I feel like there's an echo there. Year to date, and if we look through March the 7th, over the last few years, we've been averaging about 17,000 calls. So just in terms of trend, just to give you an idea where we're at. This same time period, however, last year, we're down from last year. Last year, we were about 19,000 calls. So we're down about 10%. But the years prior to that, we were running right there in the low 17,000 calls. So just want to give you an idea that we're trending normally, but it's really an early indicator, really too early to tell. But if we look back to where we were about 10 years ago, we ran about 75,000 calls in our jurisdiction. 5 years ago, we ran 84,000 calls. And then last year, we ran 101,000 calls. Kind of paints you a little picture of where we're headed. So if we're trending at about anywhere from 3 to 5% as we move, then, at the end of next year, we should be around 105,000 calls if things stay along that trend line. So just want to give you an idea. It's getting busy out there, and the demand for service is there, and, I'm happy to report that we're being able to provide that good service delivery. Recently, though, we've also had some good work out there at Center High School. They held there every 15 minutes. And we have a short video which I can show you here up on your screen about what that looks like. That was held on February 22nd with our crews from Engine 117, Truck 26 in the Antelope area, Medic 41, and Medic 112 participated in that. Truck 26 also was able to use some of their new extrication equipment on this drill, which was good. And 2 of our Saudi Aramco personnel participated. I know along with Director Sheets was in attendance. And then also we're working at that event too. Our recruitment video is in progress of being developed as one of the events that we're doing. So let me see if I can hit the play button here. See a little video here.
Take it down and the last piece you want.
You can't feel anything below the waist. Other than that, and now it's you're in a good spot. Just keep up.
I'm not sure. Please hurry.
Okay, we're sending help. They should be there soon.
So as you can see there, we're make sure that's off. Anyway, we continue to doing some good work out there, and thanks to our PIO there for some good footage. And this is a great program for our community members. So that concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments? No. I'd like to make just a quick comment. Number one, you talk about the 17,000 calls, and just to commend the staff that goes out behind the scenes as well, the communication staff that fields those calls and keeps people safe also. So I commend them. I just have a question about our partners from Saudi that were there. Any feedback from them regarding that program? Because that program is very powerful if you've ever been a part of that.
No, well, I'll get some feedback for you and let you know what their thoughts are on that, but I haven't received that yet.
I appreciate that. I'd like to hear that. That would be interesting to see what they thought. So thank you for
bet.
the report.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sorry, Director Wood.
Chief Quinn, is there a way we could find out when the next every 15 minutes that we'll be participating in will be?
Yeah, we'll make sure we get that to you so you're aware of it in advance. So if you want to be in attendance to that, you can be.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Chief Bridge. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, moving on. Firefighter Local 522, Vice President Trevor Jamison.
Good evening, President Barnes, Directors, Chief Harms, Trevor Jamison, Local 522 Vice President. Always great to be here. A couple of things since the last time I talked to you. Chief Harms alluded to it, but I know you've heard a little bit about the catastrophic leave policy, but it is for real now, and it went out, and the membership has signed up, and so that has been a wonderful thing to finally see come to fruition. Also, I just wanted to say again that thank you for those who attended the award ceremony. It was a nice event that our members got to experience. And then also I just wanted to update you, I recently returned from, actually yesterday, from Washington, D.C., went back there for the IAFF Legislative Conference. What a great event to go back there and represent our local, the fire service in general, and also to get together with other labor leaders from around the country and present our case to the Congress and the leaders in Congress. One thing is totally clear, is that the fire service is respected. And even one of the interesting things about it is the tone back there is kind of negative, you know, about everything that's not going right. And but the one thing, and I just wanted to represent to you, is that the fire service is what is right. We work together. We go on calls no matter who it is. It doesn't matter Republican, Democrat, or what it is, gender, nothing matters. We take care of people, and the people I represent, whether they be responding to calls or in the background assisting us and providing the services we need to provide that service, are good people. And I think you can be proud and tell your constituents as well that you represent a great group of people. And it was very clear to me that the fire service is incredibly respected, and you all can be proud. So unless you have any questions for me, that's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Thank you. The only thing I just want to thank you for coming here, but also you highlighted on a national platform to be respected in the industry, so it's good to hear. We seem to be a negative-driven profession. People call us in distress and worry in times of need, but to know that the membership's there, for you to be there for the membership, to bring that policy forward and to do that, appreciate the work on that. And Chief Arms, thank you for working on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to committee and delegate reports, Executive Committee. Board Clerk Panee will be working and pull the committee for a special meeting for us. And that would be it for that. The Communication Center JPA, Chief Harms will be reporting on that for us.
Their next meeting is March 12th at 3 o'clock, and Chief Johnson will be at the next meeting for report out.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to California Fire and Rescue Training JPA, Chief Shannon.
We haven't met since January 18th. Our March 15th meeting has been canceled. We will meet again June 21st, 4 o'clock, next door at the SESC.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee, Director Kelly.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Finance and Audit Committee will meet again on the 28th, I believe it is. Wait, 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Policy Committee, Director Gould is absent, so there's no meeting scheduled to be determined right now. We are already on to the board members' comments and questions. Starting to my right, Director Gale.
No question, just a comment. There was a Urban League's diversity recruiting session today, and we were represented. I met a gentleman I didn't know before, and we had a long chat, and I sent him some customers over, and he took a picture. I said, "Oh, please don't put that on. What is this crazy thing, Facebook or something?" But it was a good conference, and we had a great chat.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being there also.
Yeah.
Far left, Director Kelly.
I would like to extend my sincere congratulations and thank them for their years of skilled performance and deepest commitment to Metro Fire, or the fire service. 34 people going out the door, and I see a lot of names on there of people that I've interacted with. It's nice to know that some people are on their way to enjoy themselves, so congratulations once again to all the retirees.
Very good, thank you. Director Clark.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Bonilla on her 10 years of service. Well done. Also, CFO Thomas, and a great report. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say to Chief Quinn, thank you so much for the hazmat update. That was very informative and useful. I also appreciate and grateful for the opportunity to have gone to the awards gala back on March 1st. It's great to recognize and to see so many of our members who just somehow find the ability to do more than they already do. And it's good to be able to recognize them. So thank you, and congratulations to them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director Sheets.
Good evening. I wanted to congratulate Melissa as well on your years of service, and also thank you for all the help that you do for me personally, and answering all my questions that I've had over the year. I'd also like to congratulate the retirees and wish them well. Also was thankful that I was able to attend the awards gala. It was a great opportunity to see people outside and relaxed and recognizing those staff. Also wanted to thank Station 31. I was able to attend this morning an unveiling of a plaque that says proudly serving the community of Fair Oaks. And it was just a great opportunity to get out there, and I appreciate their graciousness of coffee and donuts. And then to speak about the every 15-minute drill, had the privilege of meeting the Saudi firefighters, and they were blown away about the whole program. Also gave them a little insight of when they get to the hospital, how much of an impact it makes on those students and the parents when they are going through, knowing that this is a program and a drill, but that powerful impact that it has if that is the student, that is the one that's identified as deceased. Seeing the parents at the bedside, it is an amazing program, and I'm so glad that we're able to be part of it. So thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. Director Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also attended the awards gala, and I'd like to tell everyone I thought it was very successful, especially for a first annual, and I hope that we can keep it up and expand it. Very, very enjoyable experience, as was the crab feed put on by the Burn Institute. And lo and behold, our fellow firefighters from Saudi showed up, so I wished them salam alaikum and welcome to Sacramento. And it was a full house, a totally full house. So I'm sure the revenues and donation to the Burn Institute will be perhaps record-setting this year. Need my glasses for this one. I wrote too small. Chief Bridges, thank you very much for the historical perspective. We need to always keep that in mind. See where we've been, where we're at, and then we can project perhaps where we're going. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the positive message from 522 Trevor Jameson. Thank you very, very much. Staying on the positive side, and we're all moving forward with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Not much more I can add to that. Just wish Godspeed to the retirees and pray that they're actually retired for as many years that they work, because they've earned it. And talking about the every 15 minutes, I've been a part of that, and to see how much of an impact that is. But I also look at it from the personnel who not only do that in a role-playing setting that seems very real life, but in a real-life setting, they do it every day. And the trauma that they are experiencing of seeing the sadness and the death and the loss. So again, to all the memberships, look after one another, take care of one another, and thank you for all the great work. And that will conclude our meeting. Our next meeting will be March 22nd, 2018, 6 p.m. in these chambers. We adjourn. Thank you.